Alright, hello Ace family. In the second part of this video, continuing on from the paint strip, wanted to go over the gallons, kind of how to have the conversation with the type and quality for the customer, how to have that conversation, as well as the differences so that you're well educated on it and we can present it to the customer, because we do it every single time that we sell paint. So from the paint chips, the customer has their color, they're happy with it now, and then they might even know their sheen. And then we have to come over here and we go, okay, here's our paint. Here's an explanation of the different qualities that we have. So if we're talking exterior paint, we carry three different types of exterior paint. There's Royal, Clark & Kensington, and the Ben Moore, the Ben by Ben Moore for the exterior. It kind of a good, better, best. Now, whenever we're having the paint conversation, I also like to lead off and go, well, there's the contractor grade that's kind of over here, and we can get that, but it's not for the extra quality you get for a little bit extra money. It's well worth it to at least go with the base level. So there's the contractor grade that we just don't do a whole lot of. We encourage folks to upgrade to at least the good or the better in there. So there's the contractor grade, and then there's the good, that's the Royal for exterior. Then we've got the Clark & Kensington, and then we've got the Benjamin Moore. So within each one, there's some quality differences. So the Royal is a just nice, durable. Every paint that we have for interior and exterior is in fact a paint and primer in one, but that can get a little bit deceiving. Even if it's a paint and primer in one, most of the time you still do require a primer, and that actually saves the customer money. So a customer might say, oh man, well, it's a paint and primer in one, I don't have to prime. And this is really where we talk to the customer about prep for their project. So if we're doing an outside paint project, we're going to have, let's say they're painting a shed, maybe they're painting the side of their house, two very common sites to be painting. With our exterior paint being latex, it will not stick to an oil base. And so if it's been decades since, or they don't know when the last time they painted their house, it would be smart to start with just a little square of the paint to know if it'll stick or not, because if it was painted with an oil-based paint, you cannot do a latex-based over top of it without priming first. And some folks will bring up, well, oil base used to be really good, and do you have any of that? And we absolutely do have some oil base. That's what the Rust Stop is. It's all oil base. But they're absolutely right too that it used to be very good. Now the latex technology is so much better as far as color life, as far as coverage, and as far as dealing with the elements, that they absolutely want a latex based paint. There's just not really another way that you want to go with that. So when we're talking about prep, we want to make sure that the paint surface is clean, and basically if there's bare wood showing, if they're not just doing another coat over another paint that they have, if there's bare wood showing, I like to recommend that they do a primer over top of that. And that's just because I always like to let them know, hey, listen, you can get away without doing some primer on this. The paint will stick to it, but if you want it to last a little bit longer, the key to a good top coat is a good base coat, a good primer. So I always like to just mention that to them, and then it's their decision. We're not here to make any decisions for anybody. We're just here to try to present them with the options so that they have exactly what they need to make a decision. So anyway, some other scenarios when someone might need primer is if their old paint is flaking off, if they're having some adhesion issues, or if they have an oil-based paint, they have to do a primer before doing the latex base on top of it. So there's a few situations where you might want to do that. So when we're actually talking about the exterior paint, the good, better, best, the Royal, Clark and Kensington, and Ben by Benjamin Moore. The Clark and Kensington and the Royal are the ace paint, and the Benjamin Moore is the premium grade. So what makes an exterior paint good, especially in our region in Idaho where we have -20 in the middle of winter, and then we have 100 degrees plus in the middle of the summer, that paint has to take a lot of abuse from our elements with the weather we get, with the hail that we get, and the general flexing of all the structures that occur. So what we talk about is exterior paint being able to hold its color, that it cleans pretty well, and then let's see, hold its color, cleans really well, and then its ability to flex and deal with the elements. The exterior paint is almost, I want to say like a rubberized coating, but next time you're at a house, just put your fingernail into the exterior coating, and it's almost, I don't want to say it's quite like gum, but it's kind of rubberized and it'll stretch, and that's good. That's what you want for the exterior, and that's contrasted with the interior where it's more like a stiff shell on the inside. And so that's why you generally do not want to use interior paint on the outside, is because it cannot flex the same way exterior paint is. It is not made for that, and it will flake, it will crack, and you'll have to redo it in a year. So anyway, that's just a little sidebar there. So with the Royal, starting out with the Royal, it's a good solid paint. It's a paint and primer in one. We have flat and we have satin in that. That's the most common for what people are doing on the outside. So on the outside specifically, some folks will ask, well, what sheen do I want? And as you go down in sheen, like flat, that shows the least amount of imperfections, and then satin shows a little bit more, and then semi-gloss or gloss is generally what somebody does on the trim to go ahead and highlight that. But you can do the whole house and trim in a flat. You can do the whole house and trim in a satin with everything. It is totally based on the preference of the customer, but the flat and satin are by far the way to go. And just if they are worried about imperfections, flat is probably going to hide those the best. So with Royal, just a good solid paint. As you upgrade to go to the Clark and Kensington, a few more dollars a gallon. We love to sell the Clark and Kensington. It is the better paint. It's right in the middle. It's not that much more than the good Royal, but you get more coverage. You get better cleanability. You get a longer lifetime on the color, and it's just an upgraded product overall. So it's by far the most common paint that we sell, both interior and exterior. When you go up from the Clark and Kensington, from the better to the best on the Ben right here, I guess side note too, we do within the Clark and Kensington, we've got the flat and we've got the satin as well. When we go to the Ben, we have the flat satin and then a soft gloss is what they call it, and that translates to a flat, and then there's a low luster and then the soft gloss finish that we've got, and that's all available on that color chip rack. You can kind of check that out and see how that correlates. Benjamin Moore changes some of the names. Instead of saying pearl, instead of saying satin, they'll say pearl, just to differentiate their product and give it more of a premium name. So anyway, within the Benjamin Moore, we've got the flat, low luster, and soft gloss, kind of a flat eggshell, and then satin sort of deal. And what you get out of that quality-wise is a little bit more coverage than the Clark and Kensington. You get it cleans even a little bit better, and then the main difference is the color retention in it. So I can't cover everything with the paint stuff. Definitely going to have you watch some videos through Ace 2, but within the Gen X paint on the exterior, the Gen X colorant it kind of is mixed in between the molecules on the Royal and the Clark and Kensington. But when we upgrade to the Ben on the Benjamin Morpher exterior, the molecules absorb the colorant better, and so they stay the truer color for longer. So just if someone's after the highest quality stuff, that's going to be the Ben paint. We can go ahead and get them taken care of. So I think that pretty much wraps up everything for the exterior. Now we can move on to interior. So again, the customer comes up, we've got our color chosen, we know exactly what we're going to mix, and we go, okay, great. Here's our paint. In our interior paint selections, we have 4 different grades of paint. Maybe I'll do it like this. Again, we do have some contractor grade paint for the interior stuff, but we don't like to sell it. Within the contractor grade, you can't mix dark colors. It can only handle light colors to maintain the coverage, and so you lose a little bit of color selection, but the improved quality you get just by going up to the good starting point is great, and customers are happy every time. So there's the contractor paint that is available. If somebody wants that, great, we can get it for them, but we'll ignore that for now. We've got the Royal that's good. We've got the Clark and Kensington and the Ben that are better, and then we have the Regal Select. That is the best, highest grade premium paint that you can have. I've used it quite a bit, and it is absolutely awesome. I love it. It saves a ton of labor, a ton of time when you pay for it. How I like to look at paint is you either pay for the product or you pay for the labor applying the product. And just to give you a little bit more of a background on that, with something like a contractor grade paint, you might have to do 2 or 3 coats over it. If it's a darker color, maybe even more, but 2 or 3 coats over something. Whereas the Regal Select, it's pretty unlikely you're going to need more than 1 coat. So you're paying more for the product on the Regal Select, but you're paying more for labor to actually roll it on with the Royal and using a little bit more material. So there's just kind of a trade-off there, and we're just trying to focus on how to have that conversation with the customer. So with the Royal, paint and primer in one, nice basic paint. It's good. It's very common in rentals if someone's doing ceilings where it's low traffic area, nobody's really touching the ceilings. It cleans decent, it's fine, and okay coverage. So the Royal, when we go up to the Clark and Kensington and the Ben, which are both better, I've got to focus on the Royal real quick. So with the Royal, we have the flat, satin, and semi-gloss. Eggshell is available in the Royal, but we just don't carry it at our store. The flat, satin, and semi-gloss tends to get everybody taken care of. Okay, so now we can move on to the Clark and Kensington. So that was the good. Now the better, the Clark and Kensington. Same thing. You get more coverage, and it cleans a little bit better as you move up to the Clark and Kensington. And then within the Clark and Kensington line, we have the flat, we have the eggshell, we have the satin, and then we've got the semi-gloss. So you have 4 color options. So if somebody does want that eggshell, we're going to need to present that as the Clark and Kensington or the Regal Select for them, just because of what we have as far as availability and whatnot. So those are the 4 different sheens that are available within those paints. And moving on to the Ben, which on the interior is kind of considered better. It's a few dollars more than Clark and Kensington, and it's basically, how we like to look at it is when Clark and Kensington first came out, when it was released, Ace did a great job marketing, getting the word out there. It was rated by Consumer Reports the #1 bang for your buck, value for the price, and that's really where Clark and Kensington is in the market today. that if they want the best product for the best price, that's kind of where Clark & Kensington sits. So the Ben, we've got the matte, we've got eggshell, and then we've got the semi-gloss. Those are the sheens that are available, and basically with the Ben, people might pay a few dollars more if they just wanted to stick to the Ben name. Usually we go ahead and get them into Clark & Kensington. They're very similar paints. The Ben's just a few dollars more, but to go with the Benjamin Moore name, still getting great coverage, good color, and it's going to mix real well. So we've got the good, we've got the better with the Clark & Kensington and the Ben, and now moving on to the best. So the best paint, what's the reason someone's going to want to pay that much for a gallon? First of all, with the sheens on the Regal Select, we have the flat, we have the matte, we have the eggshell, and we've got the pearl. And the pearl is very similar to, well, it's the same as a satin finish. They just changed the name for the Regal Select. And then there's the semi-gloss, of course. Within the Regal Select line, the eggshell and the pearl are are kind of the top sellers for our store within that product grouping for the Regal Select. But it is everything that you have in the other paints, just elevated. So it cleans phenomenally. The coverage is amazing. It rolls on very smooth. It's very easy to go ahead and paint. It hides very well. It covers everything. Usually you can get by with one coat. Might have to go back through and do some touch up, but again, just kind of depends on the color that you're hiding as well. And then let's see, it just covers very well. It's very nice. And then once it's all dry, you go, okay, well, once it's dry, what does it really matter? Well, it also is the best cleaning paint that we stock too. So if someone does have kids, if they're constantly cleaning walls, whether it's crayons or Sharpies or whatever, it's going to clean the best too. So when you're talking about not having to repaint again, a paint that's high quality and will clean, this is the answer. I've painted a few houses with this myself, and it's very good. You don't use a lot of paint for how much it covers. It really does go really far, and we've had great luck with it. It's awesome. And to put it into perspective for you, to kind of review this, everyone who uses the Clark & Kensington will usually not really use anything else. They won't go, oh, I'll do the Royal this time. Like, they know they like the Clark & Kensington, it's good. The people that do the Regal Select will not downgrade to a Ben or a Clark & Kensington in the future. They'll stick with that Regal Select because they are so happy with it. So when you have repeat customers that keep on doing it, that's a pretty good sign that it's working for them. So let's see, that takes care of kind of the regular house paint, and then there's a few more things that I just wanted to highlight, and that's the high gloss. We only carry this in the Clark & Kensington high gloss. We can mix colors. We've got some pre-mixed colors available for these, and the high gloss is an interior exterior. We don't sell it often. It's mostly for doors, mostly for trim. It can tend to make stuff look a little bit on the plasticky side, but if you want high gloss, we absolutely have it. The next thing I wanted to discuss is the cabinet door and trim paint, and this is a semi-gloss sheen that's available again in Clark & Kensington. I made the mistake once of selling someone some house paint for some cabinets, and it didn't turn out very well. So I don't want you to make the same mistake. Always check. It's much easier to call. It's much easier to ask than it is to have a frustrated customer, to have a project that didn't turn out very well, because usually painting's a lot of work. So I recently just painted something with the cabinet and trim paint. It turns out great. It's got great coverage. You don't see the brush marks, you don't see the roller marks, and what this does is It has a very solid shell on the outside of it, um, for the layer of paint, that it's just very durable. Cabinets are used to getting knocked around, bumped into, scratched on, and you want a really nice durable coat to be able to do that. So with the cabinet and trim paint specifically, um, a lot of trim is pre-primed is what people will get, and that's fine. It can go right over top of it. If it's bare wood, again, the key to a good top coat is going to be a great base coat. So we can get some good primer to go with that, and it will really save some coats on the back end on the paint, but also be a very nice finish if we do the investment and do the primer. The last thing, and I think we'll do something separate for some of the specialty paints, but we have a porch and floor paint. So this is available in a satin and a semi-gloss, or satin and gloss, excuse me. So satin and gloss, there's pre-mixed colors. We can also mix the colors within the satin. We cannot mix any colors in the gloss in that. In the Royal Porch and Floor, we can only custom match colors in the satin, just having to do with the oil base versus latex base, and then the pre-mixed colors, of course. So the porch and floor paint is intended to be walked on. So if someone's doing a basement, they're wondering about doing something on the basement floors where they don't have carpet or they don't have a hard floor that they're going onto, they can go ahead and, you know, paint the concrete. It works out great. I've seen a lot of folks paint concrete, paint wood, but the specific difference with the Royal Porch and Floor is that it is okay to walk on it. It can take foot traffic. It cannot take vehicle traffic. That's kind of a different line that we'll cover a little bit later. But the Royal Porch and Floor is good to be walked on, and it can go on concrete and wood, and that's what the product's intended for. The rest of the regular paints, you can't walk on them really well. They're not going to hold up too well. So again, we'll cover those other specialty paints later. And there's just one more thing that I wanted to highlight real fast, and that's the bases within each product. So when you have, I'll do the Clark & Kensington because it's going to mirror everything. We're going to have designer white, and in Royal, it's called ultra white, I think, right? Is it ultra white? So we've got designer white and ultra white. That is the pre-mixed white that's ready to go. That product number ends in 100. We throw that in the shaker, and after hammering the lid, of course, so it doesn't pop open, but we throw it in a shaker, and it's good to go. It's white, pre-mixed. You don't have to do anything with it. And then for the bases, we have a 410 base, we have a 433 base, and we have a 440 base. So you can think of this as light, medium, and dark colors. If it's a lighter color, probably going to use the 410 base. If it's a super dark color, red, green, yellow, orange, black, blue, probably going to be the 440 base. If it's somewhere in between, it's probably going to be the 433. So just thinking about that as the light, medium, and dark colors, but that's how it's organized for us. Within the Benjamin Moore, we did something a little bit different. So they've got kind of the same deal. They call their bases something else. They've got the 1X, 2X, 3X, and 4X. So there's four different bases there. We do not carry the prepackaged white in the Benjamin Moore, just to help eliminate SKUs. We tried to do the same thing with Clark & Kensington, and it did not match very well. It did not go well at all. So, but with the Benjamin Moore, it's been great. We can do pure white in the base one for just white colors, or tint that, and we just save a little bit of inventory, and that's kind of the logic behind it. Whether that's good or not, that's what we do, but we'll continue on till we do have to adjust that, till we do have to change that. But again, base 1, 2, 3, 4, Base 1 is going to be for the lighter colors. The base 4 is going to be for the darkest colors, so that you're kind of familiar with the bases and the overview. When we go over to the computer, we can grab what we need the first time and look like a Paint Pro. So, as always, ask if you have any questions. There is a lot to cover within Paint. Please ask. We're here as a team to take care of you and help you learn. So we'll go to the computer next.